Okay, welcome. As we are moving on with the soil formation processes, we have been able to look at the various categories of soil that we have been able to classify them according to the order. And here you can remember we have zonal soils, which is the youngest soil, and it is actually immature. Examples that we have here is the little soils, regal soils, flavial soils, arena soils. Actually, flavial soils, when you look at them very carefully, they have been formed from the lava flows of recently blown volcanic mountain. Therefore, they are called flavial soils. And then the zonal soils are actually the one that have been formed over a given period of time, and they have taken enough time to develop. These soils have a well-developed soil profile, which is mature, well-drained, and also fertile. Some of these examples of the soils is the podzols. We have the podzolic, the tundra soils, the pedicles, and the chanozems. Chanozems are the red soils which are almost found in the deserts. Intrazonal soils are the soils which have been formed, though they have taken a period of time to be formed, but they have been formed in the poor drainage conditions, and they have still bearing some characteristic of hydromorphic soil, calcimorphic soils, and andosols. Hydromorphic soils are found along the swampy regions, the same to calcimorphic soils along the areas where there is waterlogging regions, and andosols. That is the area where we can easily find them. Then let's move on and look at the methods of reducing soil. Preservation or conservation of soil. When we look at the methods of reducing soil erosion, as we are able to reduce soil erosion, then we have been able to manage what we call soil conservation. That one will be a great deal to us. Having understood various methods or various causes of soil erosion, then it is very easy for us to develop some new methods or methods of conserving the soil, that is reducing soil erosion completely. One way of reducing soil erosion is using windbreaks. We can have windbreaks, or we call them windbreakers. When we use windbreaks, it means that on the hedge of the farm, we are planting more trees, and these trees should have been able to have developed. The trees can be able to add actually nutrients to the soil, especially when we look at more of the indigenous trees. That one takes longer time to grow and be established. We look at the exotic trees, depending on the regions where you come from. When you put these trees or you plant them around the hedges of the farm, they are able to reduce the speed of wind. These windbreakers, they are just trees that reduce the speed of wind and therefore reduces the rate at which the soil can be blown away. At the same time, the windbreakers that involves trees and also vegetation that is establishing what we call vegetation cover. When we plant vegetation cover such as grass, which is going to form pasture, therefore we are also reducing the speed at which the surface runoff of the water takes place. And this one makes us to have been able to manage areas of soil erosion. Another mechanism, another method of which we can develop is planting on terraces. Planting on terraces. When we plant on terraces and around the hill, this helps us to reduce soil erosion, which occurs massively along the slope by creating ridges and the stop waters. Those are the terraces. For example, this could be an example of a hill, and then we break it into various forms as we move. You'll find that this makes a good plantation of the crops. These are at the terraces that have been created, and therefore just a long hill is actually enough, because we are looking for crop production. And then we also develop such mechanisms of planting on the terraces. Therefore, this is a cut part that has been blocked from sweeping away the soil. Therefore, this part holds the soil and allow water to drain in. Therefore, crops can be grown. And therefore, this has also reduced the rate at which the water will flow, because looking at the gradient of the slope of the land, you'll find that if there is a very loose soil, it could easily be washed massively down into the streams. And this one also can help us, that is terracing. And also another way is mulching, especially in dry spells, in the areas where there's a shorter rain seasons. Mulching is establishing what we call the cover crops, the crops which have been actually already established. For example, kales. You are planting kales, and these kales have been planted in good rows. Therefore, you have to establish a mulch by bringing some of the dusts, especially the sawdust, or you can use the twigs of trees and plant leaves to mulch. When you mulch this soil, this is what we call a mulch. When you mulch the soil, you are only allowing the kales to be exposed on sun rays, while the mulch itself maintains the soil moisture. The soil moisture is maintained. At the same time, this mulch, if it is organic mulch, it is going to decompose and add nutrients in the soil. In that manner, you have reduced soil erosion, you have preserved what you call soil structure, and the soil is able to produce its yields without interference. That is a model. Then another way of reducing soil erosion. These are various methods that can help us to reduce soil erosion. We can also reduce the number of livestock. We have to reduce the number of livestock on the farm. When we reduce the number of livestock on the farm, then we will be able to give animals and the fields an ample time to be restored in its condition. For example, when you reduce the number of livestock that has been causing what you call overgrazing, you will have prevented overgrazing. That is one. And when you prevent what you call overgrazing, you have again prevented what you call overstocking. All these have been possible enough to make the soil very loose and infertile, because it can easily be washed away by the rainwater. When this rainwater comes and finds the soil is very loose, it can easily be washed away. Therefore, when we monitor the number of livestock on the farm, we are preventing overgrazings of the land, and therefore we are matching the number of livestock with the carrying capacity of the farm. That becomes important. If your field is able to accommodate, for example, 10 livestock, you have 10 cows, for example, and you get milk from this cow, then you will reorganize your field into what we call paddocks. You organize your field into paddocks. These become field 1, field 2, field 3, and field 4. Therefore, animals will be able to graze and get enough pasture from this field for a period of 1 week. They can graze here for 1 week. And then after that, you move them to the next field for around 1 week. And then after that, you move them also to the second, that is the third field, for 1 week. Therefore, and the last week of the 4, that is the 4th week, also they have. Therefore, calculating the number of weeks you are able to manage here, this is a 4 week, the same piece of land. What you have done, when you move your livestock on this farm, you have given time for the grass and pasture to regrow. Therefore, you are allowing what you call natural restoration. You are restoring this pasture naturally in itself. And then as you move them here, these grass are growing still, and these one are also growing. That becomes good. And then you find out that by the time the animals goes up to the 4th field, these grass are mature enough to provide pasture to your 10 cows comfortably. And you'll be able to get milk and some other products there. You will not have disturbed this farm. And this piece of farm can sustain these animals for a longer period without disturbing it, without rendering this farm infertile or maybe causing a lot of commotion. Remember, at the same time, you have been able to plant trees. You have been able to plant some trees around this farm or around these fields. At least these trees can provide shade for the animals, making the farm very beautiful. These are mechanisms. When scientifically we develop them this way, then we are able to make a good conservation on our environment. After reducing the number of animals on the farm, we have to initiate management programs. We have to initiate management programs on the farm, initiating management programs on the farm, such as also managing the wildlife and biodiversity. Managing wildlife and biodiversity. When you manage some of the wildlife, such as monkeys, giraffes, elephants, at least kangaroos, you are managing what we call the biodiversity. And again, another way is on natural setup of that land. On the natural setup of the land, we also have to preserve the sacred, or you preserve what we call the sacred cultural sites. Preserve the cultural sacred sites and artifacts. When we preserve these artifacts, most of these artifacts can be, for example, of the Aboriginal people. These is management programs that we can initiate so that they are able to preserve the sacred and cultural site and artifact of Aboriginal people and their historic relics. There are very good historic relics that can be obtained from Aboriginal people. I like them so much, and I've found out them very much interesting in various areas. And that one will also be able to provide recreational activity. Provide recreational activity, even on that farm. Because where is the farm? The farm is found on planet Earth, on the Earth's surface. Provide recreational activity that include sporting activity, skiing and skidding, depending on the regions or the environment wherever you are. That brings us to be able to have adopted the very best way of reducing soil erosion and conserving our environment and biodiversity. We will be able to hand it over to the next generation in a better, healthy, and a productive way. We will have conserved biodiversity. Then, when we have been able to look at this, it becomes very important for us to look at the humans in the environment. The humans on the environment, or the humans in the system. This human, what are they doing in the system? Because we have been able to look at the system of biodiversity. That is good. After looking into various ways of preserving and conserving models of the soils, it is the responsibility of these humans in the system. But perhaps when we look at the human system, a human system forms part of the life on Earth. And humans are a very intelligent being with the unique characteristic that can be able to be responsible for the scale of either the impact on the environment. Many of the human beings are not specialized most of the human beings are not specialized for a particular niche. Most of them, they are not specialized for a particular niche. Why? Because they are intelligent. They are intelligent and can be able to use their intelligence responsibly in particular niche and preserve the biodiversity. Although it is these human beings who make very sophisticated tools and they work together, sometimes to the harmful of the environment, they can also cope up with almost any terrestrial habitat. That is the ability of human being. This human being found in any place, they can cope up with any form of this terrestrial habitat. And as they cope up with the terrestrial habitat, they can either increase their range and cover most of the planet. When we look at the first Aboriginal people, that is the first Australians, most of them, they were hunters. Most of them, they were hunters. And in the process, they could also gather. We will say they were hunters and gatherers. They will live with the environment, moving around and allowing each patch of land to recover. They could allow each patch of land to recover. Why? They had an intelligible responsibility to ensure that they are preserving the environment. When you leave some patches of the land to recover naturally, then you are doing what? Either recycling the land or you are conserving the environment. That is the humans who are found in the system in the ancient periods, such as the Aboriginal people of the Australia. Most of their agricultural activities and artifacts, after now there was development of the ecosystem, most diverted the energy and the nutrients to make most of the biological products of their nature that were chosen by human beings, such as food, chemicals. They could adopt chemicals and other fibers. As a result of the demand of food, chemicals, and some of the natural products that could be able to be found, they initiated agriculture. What happened to the Aboriginal people? Therefore, agriculture propelled urbanization. Agriculture propelled, that is, urbanization. It is this agriculture, when it propelled urbanization, most of the cities began to grow. The countries were expanding and controlling the land in various use. Therefore, what were they doing? As expansion in urbanization and agriculture began, the natural environment then began to be destroyed. As they moved from the agriculture, we'll be able to find out that as they moved from agricultural activities, after a period of time, most of them adopted business and industrial occupation. There were various models of business and industrial occupation, and occupation in industries. This led to what we call industrial revolution. As a result of the revolution, most of the people produced the technology, and there was enough power that rapidly make various changes on the environment. Because of the Industrial Revolution, because of the Industrial Revolution, you will find that the technology increased, science and technology increased. In amid of an increased population, all over the cities, all over the regions and the countries at large, this made the large changes on the environment that came up with the following. Industrial Revolution, especially in 1800s, we'll find that it made the major world that we are able to know today. Therefore, urbanization and industrialization brought Industrial Revolution that has brought to this what we know to modern days today. Prior to this, there has been manufacturing of farm products that were done at people's home. That is before. There was some manufacturing that were being done on small scale, where at people's home they were only satisfying their need. That is natural constant capital or capitation of human income. They were able to sustain the environment prior to industrialization or Industrial Revolution. But now when Industrial Revolution came in, because of technology and because of new demands of energy, industrialization developed. When industrialization developed, it demanded what we call more, the demand were placed on energy resources, more energy and more sophisticated technology advanced, because prior to that there were just man-made tools that were used that could not harm the environment. But because of industrialization and urbanization, it made a major shift to the special purpose machinery that were based on fossil fuel. That is as a result of the demand of energy. The fossils fuel were now on a higher demand, such the non-renewable resources of energy. For the first time, this permitted the human to significantly alter the environment up to date. That is why we have to make preservation method. What were the main features of Industrial Revolution? As a result of the Aboriginal people and other people of the world moving from agricultural activity to business and industrialization, the main features of industrialization or the main features of Industrial Revolution Main features of the Industrial Revolution included the application of new technology. The new technology that was applied was required to be applied in both urban and rural industry. This led to both urban and rural industry, and this one led to most of the industry to develop what we call the steam engine, electric power, and transport because of the application of the new technology. And that is where the development of the steam engine, transport, in communication also developed. And because prior to that, there was human labor, what happened? There has been a replacement. Replacement of human and animals' labor. Replacement of human and animal labor that was cheaply available and easily available by the machines when the machines were invented. These machines have become more powerful, and as fast, therefore, they have developed more efficient ways of working. That one has replaced human labor. It is one of its features, and it also led to the replacement of the renewable replacement of renewable energy resources or energy sources. And most of the renewable energy sources, you can easily remember them. These were replaced, and then people adopted what we call the non-renewable energy resources such as the fossil fuel. There was high demand of the use of coal and natural gas. This one replaced the use of the renewable energy sources such as the wind and the solar. All these features categorized brought some consequences. They brought some of the consequences on the environment, which we have to look at the consequences of Industrial Revolution. What were the consequences? The consequences of Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution came with an increase in the use of energy resources. That is one consequence. There was a high demand. There was high demand of energy resources, and many people of the world, or many industrial community, were able to tap into available non-renewable resources such as coal, which was available to some given extent, natural gas, the high demand of energy, because most of the industries were powered by coal, steam engines. They required high energy. And this one led to a great increase in the production. There was a great increase in the production of wastes. most of the waste products were produced, which began to create what we call pollution on the environment. The environment was polluted, and most of these activities, as a result of the increased production of wastes, there has been several, when we look at the pollution in the larger context, such as forms of pollution include air pollution. We also have water pollution, which is also very dangerous. And we also have some form of sound. We also call it the noise pollution. All of these, because of the waste products that are in great increase, they have led to the greater pollutions, and most of the waste products are the pollutants in the environment. As a result of that, there has been an increase in the standard of living. That becomes positive, an increase in the standard of living, creating a large population, and then resulting into a higher number of people increasing also, bringing out what we call rapid and continuous economic growth. Rapid and continuous economic growth was also one of the consequences of the Industrial Revolution, because more mines were built by nation and produced more minerals. The more mines were built as a result of this. And this led to more minerals being mined. For example, Australia became the second largest producer. Australia became the second largest producer of copper. Mineral, that one in the world, because of the rapid and continuous economic growth which developed as a consequence of the revolution, turning around, that is the shift from the Aboriginal lifestyle. Also, this led to the widespread change in the natural environment, leading to natural environment. And to date, we have the global climate change. What has happened? There has been a widespread that is the widespread change. There is a widespread of change in the natural environment. This natural environment has actually changed. As a result of changing in this manner, it has led to what we call global climate change, of which we'll be able to look at it. Global changes have become the issues in the world, beginning with the weather. All these and other consequences that have been able to be felt in various parts of the country have been brought about by Industrial Revolution. When we look at most of these revolutions, they have come as a result of the human being found in the system of the biodiversity. But it is also quite important to look at most of these consequences and bring about changes, because humans being found in the system, they have a potential of identifying responsibly new ways of preserving the biodiversity and the environment. Having looked at those effects and the consequences of industrial revolution, then we are able to understand our responsibility from now, henceforth, to the next generation. How are we supposed to live? And how are we supposed to carry on ourselves on the environment? That brings us almost to the end of this lesson. But now we have some review questions here. We'll have to look at them. I have one or around 3 questions for us to be able to look at them carefully and understand. One of the questions says that air pollution is a major source of environment. Air pollution is a major source of environment damage. Source of environmental damage. It's a major source of environmental damage. Complete the table below, which summarizes the source and the effects of the pollution. Complete the table below, which summarizes the source of the effect of the pollutants. And the effects of the pollutants. This table is very simple here. We have a very simple table that will help us to look at various parts or various forms of pollutions on the global world, actually specifically on air pollution. When we look at the air pollution, then we are able to find out major parts that are playing. What are these pollutants and what are we doing about them? We have the pollutant, the source. Let's look at the pollutant here. Where is it coming from? The source of the pollutant, where is it released? And what is the effects of these pollutants? For example, we have here that is for the source is domestic industrial. And then what do they release? Aerosols and spray. What is the effect? This one destroys ozone layer. They want you to find out the pollutant here. And then in the next, they have given us sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is a domestic industrial, as its source from domestic industrial regions. And what does it, when it is burned, what does it release? They want you to fill this part. And what is the effect? The effect is the acid rain. Nitrous oxide is the next. Nitrous oxide is a domestic, industrial. Nitrous oxide is domestic, industrial. It is released by burning of fossils, mostly fossil fuel. What is its effect? Carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, where is its source? And then it is also released by burning fossils. What does it have? What is the effect of the carbon dioxide? This is the table that summarizes most of the pollutants that we have on the environment. Looking at their source, looking at their effect, on the environment. What do you think is the pollutant here that is actually from domestic industrial, and it produces aerosols and sprays? It also goes to destroy what we call ozone layer. You can suggest. Critically, you look at it. This pollutant can be comprises of the chlorofluorocarbon. These are the compounds of the chlorofluorocarbons which are produced from domestic industrial. Actually, they give aerosols such as the herbicides, insecticides, which are also form of the spray. When they are released in form of aerosols and the spray, they go and destroy what we call the ozone layer in the atmosphere. What about this pollutant known as sulfur dioxide? Sulfur dioxide its source is from domestic industrial. How is it released in the environment? It is released in the environment by burning fossil fuel, especially the fuel from the vehicles. And as a result of that, because sulfur dioxide is a little bit acidic, it couples in the atmosphere and form what we call acid rain. It forms in acid rain. What about nitrous oxide? Nitrous oxide is a domestic industrial gas. It is produced from industry that are domestic by burning. What do you think its effect? Probably you will find out that it also leads to the formation of an acid rain. And looking into that, there is also another pollutant, that is carbon dioxide. Where do you think is its source? And it is released in the atmosphere by burning. What do you think are its effects? First of all, carbon dioxide, its source is actually from the domestic industries. Domestic industries, that will where we will get it. How is it released in the air? It is released in the air by burning of the fossil fuel, such as coal and petrol. What is its effect? When there is accumulation of carbon dioxide, it accumulates in the atmosphere. Always it produces what we call the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect, that is a rate of an increased number of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and these gases, they cloud and form a canopy. So the lower atmosphere temperature increases and becomes more higher, and that one will result into various effects. This is how you are supposed to respond on this question. It's a very good question, that air pollution is a major source of environmental damage. Complete it. This is the best way. It also summarizes most of the concepts we have been able to cover. Let's look at another one shortly. This will be much shorter. It will also be just a table. It will be in tabular form. We will have it very simple and quickly, so that it is helping us to catch up with the events that are happening on the environment. Now, the following table outlines the flow of the resources. The table outlines the flow of resources. The table outlines the flow of resources into and out. Into and out of three different ecosystems. Out of, that is, three ecosystems. Three different ecosystems. Use the word little. Use the word little, much, or some to describe. You have to use the word little, much, or some to describe the flow. Here we'll have to look at the resource. And then this resource, it is released in urban centers from agriculture. from agricultural activity, and it is natural in this manner. What we are supposed to look, for example, energy is here. And then this is energy just, and then we also have another energy. And this is energy of the waste product. After looking at the energy of the waste products, we have materials in. These materials are just coming in. And then lastly, we are looking at the recycling resources. Recycling resources. We use the word little, some, or much to describe their flow. What do you think? The energy that comes in from the urban center, that is an ecosystem. The energy that comes from the urban center, the urban center has much more energy. This energy, some of them are released into the natural, and very little of it comes from the natural setup. When you look at the energy of the wastes, where does it come from? Much of it comes from the urban centers. And some of the energy of the wastes come from the agricultural activities, and little of it comes from the environment, that is natural environment. While when you look at the materials that comes in, much of the materials are coming in from the urban center, while some are coming from the agricultural activity, and then they have very little flow in the natural. What about the recycling materials or recycling resources? They have very little which comes from the urban. We do not have much of the recycling materials or resources that comes from the urban center. And then we have some of it comes from the agriculture, and much of it come from the environment. For example, the sun or the solar energy, very little comes from urban center, and some come from agricultural activities such as the biogas, and then much of the recycling energy comes from the natural environment. Having looked at these two questions, now the concept of the global effect of modern man has been able to be well articulated, and I hope we have been able to understand the concept. Having checked this, it becomes the end of our lesson on this topic. I wish you have enjoyed and have a good day. Thank you.